My name is Melissa Salfield, Chair. I'll go to Alan. Please speak
Alan
up.
Bogosian, here.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Baker, the Chair of the Concord Zoning.
Gross.
I'm here.
Tom.
Tom Beardsley here.
Nancy.
Hi, Nancy Nelson.
And Rebecca, are you here present?
I am here. Forgive the lack of video. I've got two kids running around. I will
That's okay. So
I can.
So you can participate though.
Yes, I will do my best. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And then
Here's our K9 member.
She's asleep, I hope. And we'll stay that way.
I don't know what
Somebody's got
that
some noise in the background. Who's that?
I'm sorry, I'm getting rid of it.
Thank you. Okay, so I would also like to, I recognize that we have 3 guests this evening. First of all, I'd like to recognize Mark White. I believe you'll be a part of our first agenda item. You're here? Yes? Let me see his name.
Yes, I am.
Okay, and then Peter Martin, a guest. Hello, and Mr. B. At any rate, we do have—
Yes, hi, I'm sorry, I was muted. My name's—
No, that's okay. I just like to welcome you. Thank you for attending or participating in this. The next thing is I need to ask someone to please offer to take minutes.
Here. Mr. Kinnaman.
Here.
Mr. Faya.
Hey, Nancy, can you mute yourself?
All that being—
I thought I was.
Thank
I
you.
just muted her.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so can I ask Bob, Tom, or Alan if you would please be willing to take the minutes? And we are being recorded, which means you have a little cheat sheet from the recording to have a volunteer. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. So thank you. So I'd like to move to the first item on the agenda, which is the demolition review public hearing for 80 Conant Street. And to welcome Mark White, to ask you to, if you'd like to say some words about this property. I think all of us have conducted a hearing before, whether or not we wish to grant the request by Mr. White to demolish the building or request a delay on this property. And the delay would run from, oops, I'm sorry, I don't have it, which would be in the time that they submitted their documentation for this. So Mr. White?
Hi, I'm Mark White, Bentley Building Corp., 233 Independence Road in Concord. My audio is not coming across that clearly, so let me know if you cannot hear me. But we submitted a demo application for 80 Conant Street. We feel as though the existing structure, even though it was built before 1941, really doesn't meet the needs of today's buyers, and it's sort of in disrepair, where almost all components of the house need to be replaced. So we're currently designing a home that is very energy efficient, will fit in with the existing architectural standards of 80 Conant Street. But once again, we'll feel as though it'll meet the needs of today's buyers.
So I'd like to open up to the members of the commission your thoughts about their request to demolish the property. Alan,
if I could kick off.
Alan Bogosian here, and I have a question for you. You mentioned that you want to demolish it to fit in with the needs with the houses on Conant Street. Are these new houses or the old houses you're talking about?
It's the style that we've working on is something pretty similar to what's already there.
And the square footage that you're working on?
Sorry?
The square footage?
We haven't designed that yet, but it will definitely meet the FAR calculation. It'll conform to all the zoning requirements of the town.
Yeah. I would just like to point out, Alan, we don't have any role in what he replaces the house with. Our decision is just based on the merits of the existing structure.
Right.
And it's a historic value to the community. So
Okay.
that's what we need to base our decision on.
Okay.
Bob?
Could the house be renovated to meet the needs of today's population?
Really, it's a very closed down design where it's sort of compartmentalized. So you really need to take it down to the foundation. I mean, it's structurally, it's not in that great of condition. The siding is in tough shape. The windows, even though they're new, they're somewhat in disrepair. The heating system would all have to be replaced. So, and taking the existing structure, and the design really isn't there to, the layout's not there to meet today's needs. In
If it
addition
weren't
to that,
renovated and you hadn't bought it, if it were sold on the market, would it pass building inspection?
it's grandfathered, so it would have to.
Okay, so one of the things I was thinking about is that these cottages were built for workers' housing. And in effect, they were affordable housing for their day. Whatever you replace it with, it's going to sell for a lot more than it would probably sell for now. So are we removing affordable housing, however non-state-of-the-art, with less affordable housing that, in your terms, meets the needs of today's population?
Well, just to go back to what you initially said, that the house was built for a working force. Anybody that lives in that house is going to be working, so they're going to need housing. I think that you're going to find that where it's a lot more energy efficient, that even though the cost of the house may be more, your monthly maintenance will be a lot less.
Tom, did you have a...
Yeah, I've got a parallel to what Bob was saying. I know that Conant Street pretty well. I used to live in Maynard and cut across into Concord that way. And my background is urban history, so I'm always looking at buildings and buildings in their context, buildings in their time, and buildings in their place. And it's coincidence this has come up because I was only driving down about a month ago, and I was thinking, oh, it's so good that some of Concord Junction's vernacular working class housing still survives. I would throw my 10 pence in and say that building could be preserved from the exterior and still have all mod cons and then still be affordable housing as well. And you're still keeping the character of Concord Junction. And it's dead easy to forget about Concord Junction and Concord's working class railroad kind of background because of our literary revolutionary perspective. So I would strongly recommend that it's kept there and but brought up to date inside. And I think it's still a bit, it's location, isn't it? And it's a great location to live and an affordable location to live in that size.
Rebecca, are you here? Do you hear me? Rebecca? Oh, okay.
She's not, I don't think she's logged in right now.
Well, she was. Okay, Nancy?
Whoops.
Yeah, she's
go
here.
ahead, Nancy, and then I'll chime in.
Okay, Nancy, are you there? You have a comment about 80 Conant Street? You have to unmute yourself. I can't.
Yeah, my iPad, I can use my finger. I don't have a real comment to make right now. I know the neighborhood. I know it's seen an awful lot of change so far. Typically in situations like this, I would really want to have some kind of photo documentation, and maybe also the interior would be really good, no matter which way we go on it. It's good to document these houses, which, you know, Concord has changed. Preserving moderate income housing is not the responsibility of a private owner. So That's all. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Now see if I can.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, yeah, I think I might be in the minority here. I actually don't know that I feel as strongly about this particular property as others that we've seen. Only because I also know the neighborhood very well. We're always there at the playground. That street has changed so much already. Whereas I think of other streets, like just along Commonwealth, where you have so many houses in a row that are all still of the original or of the character, whereas Conan Street has changed in so many ways. This one almost feels like the only throwback left. So I don't know that I feel as strongly about it. I certainly would applaud any new structure that would replicate both the affordable housing and then, like you're saying, more energy efficient, meeting sort of current goals of Concord. And I'd love to see that. And again, I would second what Nancy just said about documenting this particular property before anything happened to it, inside and outside.
Bob, yep.
So I wonder if we could try to distinguish between the needs of today's population and the tastes of today's population. That is, I thought of this when Mark suggested that it was all compartmentalized. And we have a fad for open design. But if you've lived in an open design house long enough, you're really glad to have rooms with doors. And so it does seem to me that I want to clarify and ask Mark to clarify, is he seeking to build for the fashion of the present? Or are there real needs in terms of systems for maintaining a house that have to be met that can't be done now?
Can I just interject before you even answer that, Mark? Just remember, our role is just to determine whether we preserve the house, or we ask to preserve the house, or we allow a demolition.
Right.
You know, what they want to replace it with really is none of our business.
Right, but so I'm just saying that the builder has the option in his own presentation of whether to seek a demolition approval or to renovate. And we can ask questions that could lead the proponent to say, oh, you're right, you know, I could renovate.
Okay, as long as, okay, fair enough.
Well, you know, one of the things about the house is that the laundry is in the basement. There's only one bathroom on the first floor. There's no bathrooms on the second floor. The bedrooms are tiny. The kitchen is almost non-existent. So it's just not a house that's conducive to today's living standards. If anybody came in and tried to remodel that, you're not going to lose an affordable house because they're going to spend just as much money remodeling that as I am going to be rebuilding it.
Yeah. So
it's not like you're going to be saving the quote unquote affordable home. Anybody that comes in, and once you start on that, you're going to be $300,000-$400,000 remodeling that, because there's just, I mean, everything needs to be replaced.
But the point of my questions was to get you to lay out some of that.
Okay. Well, like I say, there's one bathroom. All the rooms are tiny. The kitchen is, yeah, I don't know how you'd cook a turkey in there, but, and it, you know, it doesn't conform to today's zoning. It's right on the street as far as the setback.
I'm sorry, Tom, you had a comment?
I froze up there. I just didn't hear the last little bit. I didn't hear the last bit. Everything froze for me.
Well, I'm not sure what you didn't hear, but the house doesn't conform to today's setbacks. It encroaches upon the front yard setback. So it's almost on the street. So anything that was rebuilt on it would need to conform to the current zoning.
Yeah, I would still, I see what you're saying, Mark, but I would still kind of stay with just this idea of preserving some aspect of this 19th century vernacular landscape.
Could I interrupt for a minute?
Yep.
Could I interrupt for a minute?
Yeah, Nancy?
I have to go. Do you have a quorum?
We do. We have myself.
Without me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'll be back.
Okay, bye. Well, is there any more discussion? Are the folks who can vote, which would be Tom, Bob, and myself, prepared to make a motion? I mean, I think, well, I haven't spoken. I guess at the very least, I recognize, because I walk around there a lot, the street has changed, as Rebecca said, it's changed a lot. But I think one of the things we can request, and I would strongly recommend that we include this in our vote recommendation, is that we ask you to document it, photo document any plans, and deposit that in special collections in the library, which is what we always ask for a building that is going to be demolished. It is a part of Concord and West Concord history that sadly we're losing, and the only way we can preserve it is through documentation and an opportunity in the future for people to go back online, see the images that you've taken. So that would be my request, that you document through photography and any floor plans that exist that at the building department or that you have be included before we would, I don't know the correct procedure, but before the building commissioner could actually issue a permit, we would need to have this documentation in hand. That's what I would ask.
I would, if the permit was granted, or I would be willing to go through and photo document and provide a set of floor plans for what's currently there.
Okay. Bob, Tom?
I would say if a decision's reached to demolish it, at least a public hearing should be made to consider the historic fabric of that area.
I think, isn't this a public hearing?
This is the hearing. We are.
I thought it went to one stage further.
No,
it's all to tonight. So that was just, okay. I'm expressing my opinion, but we will come to a vote, but I just.
There's something that I don't think we can ask the person proposing to demolish to do this, but we ought to see if we can develop the capacity not only to document the house, but do at least some kind of bare bones social history of who its occupants were.
Well,
looking at this, say, just using censuses or something,
yeah.
So that if one were to say, let's know what past is associated with this landscape, to answer that question, we would say, what human beings were associated with that landscape?
Well, that takes us to one of the items lower down on our agenda, but the whole idea of the Historic Resources Master Plan is to document properties, addresses, homes in the community of Concord and build up their history, which includes their occupants.
So if the occupants of A.D. Conant had included some famous writer who was struggling to get by in the days that she lived in A.D. Conant, we'd be rallying around to preserve this house because, the story of depression in Concord was written right there. But the point is that documenting houses and landscapes should actually include knowing something about who lived there, as the existing forms for the many historic houses do exactly that.
I agree, although we have never requested that degree of documentation.
And that's why this conversation is what prompts me to say, yes, maybe we should. There are always graduate students who need to be hired.
We don't have a budget.
No, I mean, could you build that in as a requirement for the demolition?
I think I might have to ask Marcia on this one, but I don't think we can request that degree of research. I don't know. Marcia?
It's not appropriate at this point to be asking for that kind of information, but in the future, you may want to add that to the application process to say it's beneficial and helpful to understand the history of the occupants of these various structures where they're requesting demolition. I also want to put forward the idea, we do have that 3D camera that might be very useful in documenting the interior of the house, because it takes the measurable, it is able to translate the dimensions so that we can record what those dimensions were within the structure itself. So that would be another aspect of documentation that you might want to think about.
We would, though, have to be sure that we continue to adapt and upgrade the technology of VR and 3D so that it can always be seen.
Mark, I'm sorry, yes?
Bob, like I said, my internet connection isn't great, so I wasn't quite hearing what you were saying. Were you just asking to research the history on who had lived at the house?
Mm-hmm.
And how would you go about doing that?
I'm a social historian.
Well,
so,
yeah.
So would you do it for me?
What you would do is you'd look at the US Census when you can pinpoint that address. And I wouldn't even argue you do it every 10 years, but figure generationally, you know, what you would find out is how many people lived in the house, who was the household head, were they immigrants, were they natives, what were their occupations? I mean, those would be the basic things. And it matters in the sense that this is an area that was once centered around a factory. And we ought at least to preserve the knowledge of what constituted factory village. If we lose that, build new houses, we'll never have a sense of Concord's industrial past.
Very true, but we are not in a position to request that degree of research, but we can ask for the photo documentation, the floor plans, the site, the elevations. That's something we can request.
And I would, oh, sorry.
Rebecca, hi.
I was just going to chime in that on the form, the historical significance assessment form, somebody may have looked into some of that in the past, because under number 4, is it significant for age, role in Concord history, or association with a noted resident? The answer is no. So somebody may have, already done research to be able to pull that up.
This property is, or not specifically, I don't think 80 Conan, but the group of them is listed in the master plan, the Historic Resources Master Plan, which I would hope all of you have. Actually, it's this document. This is the document I've talked about that we need to update. So research has been done, some very minimal research, but certainly research. And it's in the Macros form, and the documentation that I think Marcia has already provided, that was on the on the documents for tonight's meeting. So we do have some, but again, for the purposes of this request of Mr. White, I think my understanding is all we could really ask reasonably is photography, a site plan, elevations, that sort of thing of the existing house that would be put on deposit at the library. That's, that is what we've asked others, unless the house was of particular importance because of its particular style, whoever lived there that we knew about. So are we ready to actually someone to make a motion to take a vote on whether or not this house we will allow for it to be demolished or preserved for the remainder of the year that's allowed?
You want a positive or negative motion?
Well, I mean,
I
don't really have a sense of of all of us. It's you, me,
Rebecca and Alan.
Tom. Rebecca doesn't vote. Nancy is not here. but the three of us constitute a quorum. We can vote on this, whether or not.
Doesn't Alan vote?
Alan's an associate member, so he doesn't vote.
I thought they move up when, when you don't have a quorum, right?
We have a quorum.
Okay. I move we allow the demolition to go forward.
With any
with the requirement that the owner builder document the house photographically in site specifications and any other ways that can preserve a sense of the structure and its surrounding landscape.
I'll second that. Can we have a vote? And in order to do that, I have to ask you, Bob, what is your vote?
You seconded, okay. I vote in favor of the motion.
Tom?
I vote against the motion.
And I would vote to support the motion.
Did I hear Tom correctly that he voted against the motion?
Yes.
Then the motion, because you are 3, the motion fails.
So 2-1 doesn't make it.
You need to have a majority of your membership voting in favor. So you have 5 members.
Okay. 3
out of 5 have to vote in favor of the motion. Since you only have 3 voting members this evening, you need to have a unanimous decision.
Okay.
That's the definition quantitatively of ambivalence.
Well, I'm disappointed in Nancy because she's present but not present. So,
can we? She said she was coming back. Is there any chance we could wait till she come back?
Marcia, what about that?
Well, she hasn't heard the continuing discussion. She vacated the discussion, so I would be disinclined. If anybody were to oppose or be aggrieved of the decision of the committee, then it's not staying. Does Tom have an alternative motion?
Tom?
No, I would like to see the house stay and be improved. So I've got an alternative motion. No.
Well, given that, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say you need to come up with something. So, Mark, you could either allow continuation of this discussion, so that
I'll allow continuation.
So you can maybe bring Nancy up to speed, so we can revisit this. And we could try to re-engage this conversation, say in an hour, if you wanted to, or after. I know it's really, really odd, but you've got to come up with a unanimous decision of some kind. We can't just leave the applicant hanging.
No, I realize. So Tom, well, I mean, you have your, Mark, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Marcia, Alan, one of the associate members, could not vote in this case? No.
It's anomalous that the associate can't move up to vote since we have a quorum, but our quorum has to be unanimous to be meaningful.
Well, whatever the rules are, if
your charge has not been changed or revised since 1982. That charge is what is in effect here. Even though you have associate members, they have no standing because there are no associate members mentioned in your charge from 1982. Right. So that's why they can't move up for a hearing of this nature.
So, Marcia, if we continue, we table this motion for a period this evening, and Nancy came back, she would still have missed what we've talked about. Would that?
So you may want to continue the hearing and revisit the hearing and go through the whole conversation again, see if there's any additional information that can be gathered over before your next meeting. Those are the kinds of things that might play into this. Mark, if you could maybe provide some additional interior photos of some of the situations that you've uncovered as you've explored the house that might help inform the commission in what they're thinking, that might be helpful. I'm not sure what issues Tom might be interested in learning more about that might change his perspective on this situation, or Melissa or Bob, yours either. So, but that would give you some additional time, and we could come back to further discussion.
Mark, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
If Nancy were to come back, Marcia, could we read the minutes to her, and then that would bring her up to speed? And we could convene in an hour, or just ask.
That's up to the other members.
I would think that by the rules of parliamentary and meeting procedure, one of us, when Nancy returns, would have to make a motion to reopen the decision. If the motion passes, we would reopen the decision and then rehearse the discussion. One of the things that town meeting did frequently in the 18th century is whatever decision they made at one meeting, they would always revisit it the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
Well, I mean, one option, of course, is this will become item number 1 on the March agenda, but that just means Mr. White waits another month. If that's what I don't know what the rules are. If Nancy comes back in about half an hour, we open this up and discuss this again. Could we take a different vote?
We could take a motion in the same meeting to reconsider.
You need to set a specific time. Say you wanted to go into a different discussion, or you had a different hearing started, you would say, we're going to, it's been a while since I've been to a public meeting, so a public hearing. I believe you're going to table the discussion to resume in a time certain, so it might be at 8:30, and continue the conversation or continue the discussion on this topic, and then take up the other items that are on your agenda.
Okay. Well, do I need a motion to do that, or can I just declare that as chair?
Yes, you should take the motion and have a vote. So
would someone propose a motion that we table this for the moment and take it up again at, well, 8:30, sounds fine.
Okay, so I move that in view of our small numbers called on to make a decision, that we revisit this issue at 8:30 p.m. when we will presumably have a crowd here.
A quorum. Okay, I think I'll second that motion so that we would resume at 8:30. All in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Myself, aye. So I hope that's not too much of an inconvenience, Mark. I'm sorry, but
no,
I don't know how to reach.
Appreciate everyone spending the time.
And you're home.
I'm sorry?
Everybody on Zoom's at home.
Yeah, I know. Still, keeps you away from other stuff, but thank you. So I'll see you at 8:30.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, well, so then we will resume on this at 8:30, but now we'll move on to item 2 on our agenda, which is the an alternative name for the road, Keuka Road, which is associated with the Hosmer Meadow, a new development, which is off of Main Street. I think we probably would need to ask actually Marcia to give a little, we have a background memo. I hope all of you read that. But maybe Marcia, you want to fill us in a little bit more? We can't hear you.
We can see the memo.
Yeah. Can we hear you now? Marcia.
Marcia, you're muted.
You're muted. How can she not know she's muted? Marcia.
When I share my screen, I don't see myself, so I could not click on my microphone. So I'm going to share my screen now that my microphone is on. And,
thank you.
And apologize for that. Okay, Keuka Road, it was a paper street laid out in the early 1900s, and it was recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And because it was recorded, because it was done before subdivision control law, the people who have acquired the property, the land over time, have the right to make improvements to the way. Early in the mid 1900s, the property at 18 Keuka Road was developed, and there is a house there, and it was given the number of 18 Keuka Road. But the rest of the land, the road did not continue all the way through as shown with the lines on the map until recently. Property owners acquired certain parcels, they further subdivided the land, and now have the access opposite Florio Drive, and they're building 4 homes in that location. The road doesn't go all the way through. And if we number, and the building commissioner started numbering the new houses at the beginning point across from Florio Drive. So there's a conflict with the numbering system. The fire department is concerned because Keuka Road doesn't go all the way through. And if they have the same name and the same numbering, they're concerned that they may not make it to the house if there's a fire or an emergency in time. So the suggestion is to leave 18 Keuka Road as Keuka Road and rename the other portion that is opposite Florio Drive. And you have 5 names that you can to be considered that are that the fire department felt were not in conflict with any other names in the community. So that's some of the background. The planning board is the entity that is responsible for naming subdivision roads, but they seek the input of the historical commission and the fire department as part, and that's part of their regulations, so that we don't end up with streets like Christopher Lane or Madge Lane or things like that. So we try to honor the history of Concord as we consider the names of streets.
Well, Marcia, why can't they call that whole road Keuka Road?
It doesn't connect. What you are seeing with those black lines is the right of way. The red line is where the new road has constructed, and only where the 18 Keuka Road is labeled, there's a driveway that goes between there to serve 18 Keuka Road.
So the red line, will it be a dead end?
Yes, there's a turnaround at the end of that.
Okay, okay. So it needs to be a distinctly different name.
Correct.
So I found I had surprisingly strong reaction to this, in that if we're talking about preserving Concord's past, not all its past is encompassed by Hosmers and Woods and Wheelers and Barretts. There are people with other kinds of European immigrant and other names. And I wondered, it's Hosmer Meadow, how about some names of people who were immigrants who lived in that area, and we recognize them? You could keep Hope Road in, my hope that we recognize the immigrant past. But it did strike me that everything, when we lived in Williamsburg, Virginia, the developer of our area loved Robin Hood, and everything was Maid Marian and Sherwood Forest and the like. And that fantasy of an imagined past, I think, could be broken into by giving historical street names that aren't just the old Yankee heritage.
Can I just confirm two things? One, that our only choices are these 5, which have been approved by the fire department already. And 2, that we're just making a recommendation, right? What our opinion is,
Right.
We're not actually in charge of it. Are those both correct, Melissa? Or
I have to defer to Marcia, is that true?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct.
Okay. And
yeah,
I would just add, you know, part of me likes the Nathaniel way because obviously he has such a connection to the town, but if there's nothing particular about the site, and Tom, you might know more about this than me or Bob, but nothing particular about the site that is connected to Hawthorne, then I don't know that it's the right street for it, and it could be tabled for a later date. And I sort of like the romanticism of some of these, you know, Sunset Way, Hope Road. I like the Hope Road too. I don't know who Mccaller is, so I can't comment as far as.
Mccaller was the original owner of the property, the person that put it all together. So on the registry at the Registry of Deeds, it's called the Mccaller Tract.
That makes sense.
I mean, that's what I like that because it's after the person who developed it. It was his. So
too.
Right.
I would go for Mccaller Lane.
Mm-hmm.
I would second that.
But what we're saying is we're just really bumping our gums because really we're not the ones who are making a decision.
Well, your input is requested. And it's a requirement of the planning board's regulations.
So do we need to have consensus? All of us pick the same one?
No, it just needs to be a majority.
Yeah. So we've had, seems to me we've got 2 people, Mccaller Lane or Hope Road are the ones that I've heard expressed. So I guess I would ask who would support Mccaller Lane? Can I ask it this way? I don't have to make a motion. Can I just ask it?
Sure.
Okay, I'm asking that. Who amongst the folks here would say Mccaller Lane? That's
I am raising my hand, though you cannot see me.
so I can let the chair say. Can I say that Alan Bogosian, Bob Gross, Rebecca Lemaitre, and Melissa Sawfield all thought Mccaller Lane was appropriate? What about you, Tom?
Fieldstone. But
you're just being very difficult tonight.
I'm terribly sorry, yeah. But I'm outvoted, so it's academic, I guess, isn't it? But I like.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that can we allow Rebecca and Alan to vote to count tonight and this one?
I think where it's a recommendation, it's not a public hearing. Yes.
Okay, so that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 to 1.
Yeah.
There's no fieldstone walls on this property.
I think there are other areas that have a lot more fieldstone than this.
I'm thinking of Robert Thorson's book about Concord and the fieldstone, and it's some of the earliest fieldstone in New England.
Since he's a close friend of mine, maybe we should just call it Thorson Road. And
no, I want something more dignified for that. And then when we name, Gross Lane, it will be,
I say in the interests of unity, Melissa, I'll go with Mccaller.
Thank you. Okay.
Before me and Bob get into some sort of
Yes, on my screen, you're right next to each other. You could be duking it out. Okay, so we've, thank you. So our recommendation for the record is Mccaller Lane for this new street.
I will relay that to the planning board.
Okay, so moving on to item number 3. I guess it didn't get sent out to all of you. I have drafted, what I am trying to do is to come up with a comprehensive proposal to update this historic resource master plan and describe the components of it, which would be 1, a new document like this, but also an online presence and an online kind of hosted out of the Concord Free Public Library Special Collections. And I have, been speaking with Anka Voss about that. But I thought I was going to be sent out to all of you what I've written so far to ask your comments. So I will ask that to go out this week. And if you would just look at it, because I have been, I've gotten to talk to a couple of people who are historic preservationists who might be a consultant that we could hire eventually or to update this product for us. You know, it is, Bob, like in association what you were describing for 80 Conant Street, the whole concept that I've been talking to Anka about would be that we have some documentation written in a printed version of 80 Conant Street, and then you could go online, click on that, and it would pull up this history of West Concord and in the light industry that was associated with West Concord. That's the one of the key attributes of this new version that I'm hoping that we can create. So, but it's all in my little head and I'm trying to put it out on the paper, and I would really appreciate everyone reviewing it and adding your comments to this. I've also sent it to Electa Tritch, who is the former chair of the Historical Commission and a professional historian. My thought was, once we get our document together, we could submit a proposal for funding to the Mass Historical Commission. They do have planning grants that would precisely support something like this, but they are matching grants. It's a matching grant program. So I would hope to also submit a grant to the Community Preservation Committee for CPA funding. But that, really would be like next year. But for the time being, it's going to take a fair amount of effort to write this up in some coherent fashion. So I will send this to you, and I really would appreciate your review. The other parts that I think need to be associated with it is for us to think about a kind of a communications plan, how we use the document to educate the public about the importance of historic preservation and advocate for it. So that's what number 3 is. And I'm sorry you don't have the document, so I'll send that out tomorrow. That's okay. So moving on to number 4, did any of you have the opportunity to drive by this area near Sleepy Hollow? Anybody?
Yes, I did. Again, raising my hand, though you can't see me.
I can't see you. Yes, well. Rebecca, yes, your thoughts. Hello?
Sorry. I think I'm less, I might be in the minority again here. I think I'm less troubled by it than others are. It's obviously very obvious right now with the winter and the trees bare. It would be less starkly obvious at other times of the year, but I just don't feel, driving by and looking at the proximity of other houses to the cemetery, including some very new constructions along Bedford Road. I didn't feel like it took away from the importance of the site, the beauty of the site. It hasn't been constructed yet, but there was nothing about it that troubled me in that sense. So again, I might be in the minority, but that was my feeling.
I guess I should preface this before we go on. We don't really have, other than commenting as a group, a group comment, we have no jurisdiction one way or the other over this. But I would point out, because we are going to talk about a little bit later, that in the demolition review bylaw, one of the changes would be that properties that are within 150 feet of an historic district would need to come before the commission if they were going to demolish something or propose any kind of demolition. Right now, this is right on the line of the HDC, so it is not within the HDC. Am I correct in that, Marcia?
Well, the problem here is that the existing house is not intended to be demolished. They're going to convert that to be a garage and storage.
So they're not doing any demo at all? I guess it wouldn't matter because it has to be total demolition.
Right. So this still would not come before the commission.
But I think, Marcia, aren't they going to add a story to it as well?
To the existing structure? No, they're going to be building a brand new
house.
The new house over in the corner.
over the remainder of the lot, basically.
Right.
It's over, yeah. Well,
6,400 square feet, something like that.
yeah. Other comments? Bob?
Well, since we're only recommending and have no, legal authorization, then we can offer opinions irresponsibly, which is, do these people really need a 6,400 square foot house up there?
Well, I don't know. Tom, have you driven by? Is it?
Oh, I've walked by and driven by, and I'm horrified. So I can't believe they want to build there.
I walked by in the snow, and it's going to be tall.
Yeah.
There's going to be a great view of the cemetery from their second floor.
Yeah, I guess
the owners will someday go.
That was my other thought, is that I don't know that I'd want to live that close to the cemetery, like you're saying, and have that view, but.
Well, I guess I just want to tell you, I wrote a letter, or I wrote an email to the zoning board because I was quite distressed by the fence. The height of the house bothers me less than that fence, which really functions as a wall. They've taken down the trees. It's not like there's vegetation that's going to mask it. There is a proposal to plant ivy, because I participated in the cemetery committee hearing last week. And the owner did also offer to plant some plantings on the cemetery side that would mitigate that, it's just, one solid wall. It's stark, it's enormous, it's long. And no amount of weathering is really going to minimize it. It's not going to disappear.
But when we walked around, I think we took a look at, there are 4 or 5 houses that are on the same level as the cemetery down below, but they're not as intrusive as this one is going to be. Because when the trees bud, the leaves grow in, you don't see those houses down low because they're on the same plane. But you're going to see this house.
Also, if you go back up, I think it's called the Pines area. You can see some houses on the other side, but they are, and there's no fence, but there are trees, there's shrub, there's vegetation, and they seem like benign neighbors. This, in my opinion, is not benign, it's intrusive, but it mostly because, and again, in my opinion, it's the fence. They said that they created a berm, it's up high. I don't understand the enormous fence. But again, I don't, I think they have the right to install it. Obviously they did. I guess I would encourage them to do more plantings, which he did offer, that at least it'd be less in your face. At any rate, I brought this to your attention because I feel like, at least as an advocacy, and to encourage folks to consider historic preservation of our community, Sleepy Hollow is a very important historic resource to this town, to the nation. And it seems to me kind of an affront to those who reside there. Our friend Ralph Waldo and Nathaniel Hawthorne, we were just referencing this enormous fence, which is unfriendly. Not all fences are friendly. So,
as a future resident of Sleepy Hollow,
yes,
I also did my ethics training today, so I have to consider whether the opinion I would offer had to do specifically with my interest in serenity in the afterlife, or whether it was a general interest. I guess it's a general one.
Well, at this point, tonight, actually, our meeting coincides with the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is taking this property as part of their agenda. So it's maybe too late for, I guess it is probably too late for us to, if you all agreed that we wanted to make some kind of comment. But I guess in the future, I would hope, and this sort of brings us up to another item on the agenda later, the idea of of some of us observing other committees so that we know what's going on in advance so that we could make some comment. From everything I've understood, the chairs of these other commissions, if there's enough citizen input, it does influence their vote. And if people are upset about something, it matters. You know, I'm speaking for myself. I was upset by this. I did it right, but I knew we wouldn't be meeting until tonight. So I just want to express that. Okay. Well, at any rate, so we'll move on. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll find out tomorrow. To number 5, the Wheeler Harrington, which I would also defer to Marcia because this has been your project and you have things to present to us and recap.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to, I will have to review my memo as I go forward. So have I started sharing the screen with you or no? Probably not. Not yet. Not yet. Hang on.
I think, you know, we are pretty, recall most of us went to a site visit, what, a year, 2 years ago now?
Very possibly if you were on the,
yeah.
As a group of us, we went with Heather and walked through the house. We met the current tenant, talked a little bit about what was happening there.
Okay, great. Oh, that's wonderful. So an update is that the town is not going to renew their lease, which would expire in December of 2021. And we've been informed that they will be vacating the premises after this school year. So this summer they'll be moving out. But what we've done so far, and I think of course, they're going to be wrong direction.
It's good to turn our head. Oh,
I can make this go. So the Wheeler Harrington, I've requested funds for the Wheeler Harrington House to do sort of an online public outreach event. But before we get there, the funds won't be available until July. But so what we want to do is have a meeting with the Historical Commission and the Natural Resources Commission to talk about how to use these funds to do some public outreach. What we've done so far is through the community preservation funds previously is we have an historic assessment, a structures assessment, and an environmental assessment. We have the topographic plan surveyed for the property, and we've done some roof repairs. We didn't use the funds from the CPA, but we used funds that were in a revolving account for that the lessees have contributed to. So these are the 3 reports or the 2 reports in the plan that have been prepared to date. And then we want to have a community engagement process. Some of you may be aware that many, many, many years ago, a house that was the Ball Benson house, and believed to be around, built in the late 1600s, in a barn that was built maybe late 1700s, early 1800s, were dismantled from that property when it was acquired by the town and then sold to another property owner. And that barn and house have been in a trailer at the wastewater treatment plant in Concord since then. We brought in the person who dismantled the buildings, David Ottinger, and have been talking with him about how do we repurpose these buildings or reuse them. So he has looked at he's investigated the trailer. They seem to be sound and in good shape. One of the ideas was to rebuild the barn so that on this site, which was a farm at one point in time, and then to construct the remains of the house within the barn and use that as an interpretive and an educational opportunity here in Concord. That's kind of pie in the sky, really crazy. We felt it was really, really important to talk about these possibilities or these opportunities with the community before we get too far down the road. And because the alternative is just to say, we have no place for those structures. We'll find, we'll let the owners figure out what to do with it. So we've looked at the two properties, and both the CHC and the NRC have oversight overall. And so we felt it was really important for you to have that preliminary conversation. The site, I have more information. We've been in communication with David Ottinger. He's a little challenging at times. In terms of follow-up, he'll say, oh, yes, I can do that. And you don't hear from him for 3 months. So this has been an ongoing conversation that we've had over the last 2+ years. I think as I was looking through your annual reports, 2018 might've been the last time that you've actually talked about this. So, so I just want to bring you up to date and let you know that I will be going to the Natural Resources Commission to introduce this to them, and then hopefully be able to have a meeting either in March or April, where the two groups can get together, talk it through, see what might be possible, see where you are, see what additional information you might need in order to think about it. David has prepared a brief PowerPoint presentation to talk about his ideas and how it might work, and then get your feedback and input.
Marcia, didn't we, when we did a walkthrough on that property, we made some recommendations for enhancements to the dwelling, fix the chimney, do some work in the washroom? Was any of that work ever done?
Some of it was. The chimney, yes. As I said, the roof was replaced. Mm-hmm. The washroom they were going to do, and I don't know where things stand right now. The current tenant has been responsible for doing some work. There has not been good communication between the tenant and the town on what they're planning to do and when. We've asked for certain pieces of information that have not been provided. So it's been a little challenging. And I can ask, I will have that information from the facilities group when we meet again.
Bob?
Yeah. So Marcia, you provoked the thought from your description and from what I read earlier today, that you're talking about an educational use of these buildings. What we don't have in this town is a historic center or a museum of the history of agriculture in Concord and in New England. Since we continue to be a rich agricultural area against all odds, people might have said in the 1950s or 60s, why not think about, and drawing on the Concord Museum support as well, to come up with a space where young people could, for schools, learn about farming and use that as a center, and imagine it also for larger purposes. How about a center for, sustainable agriculture in a world of climate change?
I agree. That's part of what I think the idea of a charrette or whatever, working a joint meeting with the natural resources, because I can see, it could be a center for where Delia could do a lot of programming with young kids to help them understand the importance of the natural world. Cooperative, I don't know, with Mass Audubon and the Concord Museum. And
in the back of my head was, so Brian Donahue, who wrote the wonderful book on farming in colonial Concord, he's worked on another project that envisioned a New England that produced, 40, 50% of its own food in the future. So you could imagine drawing on him for ideas like that. Mm-hmm. I like talking to an empty room.
Not here. I mean, you're preaching to the choir. These are all the crazy ideas that we've had spinning around in the planning division, but they need to be generated by the community. I'm not the one to be leading this. It really needs to come from the community.
Right. But it doesn't, just logically, when you think that saving a house that was on an agricultural site and saving it without a plan to do something that might, call attention to, the agricultural site that it was. That doesn't make sense.
Well, so Marcia, I mean, I think clearly you got, you know, I've always got an opinion. Bob's got an opinion. I think I would really welcome the opportunity to meet as a larger group to talk about the possibilities of what could happen here. So it would be our two groups, but then we would open up to the whole community, right?
Well, after July, we would bring in a consultant who would help us perhaps develop some a website where we might get some interactive opportunities for the community. We might use signs out on the land. By then we might actually be able to meet in person and do some outdoor exploration.
Yeah.
So I think that it could be a really dynamic process, and that's what I hope.
I would strongly suggest that, you know, early on you bring in Verrill Farm and Hutchins Farm, all those people to consult with you and say, what would they find really helpful?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But also, I put in a vote for the natural world side, the Audubons of the world and people that Delia would bring in, because I think they fit, they fit with agriculture. And it is, it's something like 15 acres, right?
Correct.
And Delia has already, they've mapped out trails, walking trails.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So this is very exciting, because I know this is something that actually you had proposed to Charette some time ago and applied to the Community Preservation for Funding, but withdrew because they're for other reasons. But, I'd like to, I think, speaking for myself again, but I think there were others who are concerned about the condition of the house and the tenants, their concern was not about the preservation of the property. It was a home, where they were renting. Whereas I think we have a different goal for this property.
And I don't know if any of you have visited the Thoreau Farm, house, Henry David's house. What they've done there with the small offices for the Thoreau Society, for the Thoreau Farm Trust, and the addition that has the modern amenities, but the ability for small groups to just use that space, it's just so remarkable. And I can envision perhaps a writer, poet in residence kind of thing, or but something that doesn't that has a low impact on the house itself, but contributes to whatever use we identify for the property overall.
Yeah, I mean, it is a beautiful piece of property, really.
Is there a way to use community preservation funds to endow anything? You made me think, as you just described, bringing on writers and stuff. Imagine that you had an appointment of a naturalist for a year or 2 years to live on site, to write, and maybe do some public programming, and that you open that up competitively, and that you could vary that from year to year, and you'd have a committee that would set priorities, but you'd need some kind of endowment for it.
Yeah.
I'd have to look into that, Bob. I don't know off the top of my head, but that's worth considering.
Lovely idea. Would be really, in keeping with our literary history, or, yeah. Any other ideas or thoughts? Alan, Rebecca, Tom?
I certainly like Bob's idea there, looking at the funding.
I would just second all of this, and I love the idea that this could eventually be some sort of place that school groups could go to. I think that would be really valuable for the community.
Because what they've done in Lexington is with the Buckman Tavern and some of the older homes, they've cordoned off areas in the house where they can have functions and they can gather, and even a group of 10 or less can go there on a weekend afternoon or something.
Yeah, I think, well, agreed. So I think we all look forward to the next conversation, and that we will pursue this. I'm glad the town's going to do this. It's
great.
It really could be wonderful.
Great,
wonderful.
thank you.
Preserve the land. Thank you. So we're moving on, demolition review. So I hope that all of you read the document that was part of your packet tonight, because for the demolition review, you know, we do need to make our case. And I got too many pieces of paper. There is language here that would be what the explanation is. This how I understand it, Marcia, speaking for.
I prepared a draft. Yes, that's what I put together for your consideration. You can throw that out. You can.
No, well, thank you, because you know it's always easier to edit something that's in front of you than having to make it up. So I thought it was great. I mean, so far my research is really, I'm kind of stuck on this thing about the 50-year thing, which would be in keeping with the National Register. 50 years is with the National Register. You know, saying that. It provides enough historical perspective to evaluate the significance of a property, but it wouldn't just be listing properties that were kind of just a flighting, passing interest. So I think 50 years makes sense. The other thing, I guess we need to do some research on how many properties we would be talking about. Is that possible, the building department?
Yes, actually our GIS coordinator, we have a database of all the different houses for when they were built. So our GIS coordinator or analyst can take that and calculate, you know, through the magic of algorithms, tell us how many properties were built at different time periods. So you'll have a good sense of how many houses would be applicable.
Okay, okay, and then we could separate out those, take them out of the historic districts, because those are already protected. So that would be an important statistic to know. The other would be, I think how many properties have been demolished. It says 2016. I don't know if that's the one. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about? That paragraph that Marcia has submitted for us.
3.2.
Oh, well, not 3.2. It's after, you know, it's in
a box at the end of
the box at the end.
Oh, okay.
We share it with this, but you know, in the warrant article, there's always at the end of each warrant article, there's a sort of a justification of why this is being proposed. And I think what Marcia has put down is excellent. I just think we need to make sure that we've got statistics to support it. And clearly, I would want to know as a resident, well, how many houses are you talking that would be in the 50 years or older? And then also, you know, how many properties in the last 5 years since the demolition, last version of the demolition bylaw have been torn down?
You've had 41 applications that you've reviewed since 2016.
Okay.
15 of which you considered preferably preserved.
But all of them were torn down, probably, right?
Not all of them. One of them.
The one on Hubbard Street.
The one on Hubbard Street.
Oh, well, that was a victory.
and there was a property on Hubbard Street. There was Sudbury Road, which was part of Hubbardville. That was one.
Right.
The other was Bob's correct. On Hubbard Street, the owner reconsidered and decided not to tear it down, but renovated.
Yeah, that was an example of community support, really, because the community really rallied around that and the other one on Sudbury Road. Okay.
And I can go through the annual reports. The building department does a calculation every year. So that is in the annual reports dating back to 2016 of the number of houses that have been demolished on an annual basis.
Oh.
So you can get that number.
Okay. So I open it up to everybody else. I mean, we need to make a compelling case on the 3 items. And so obviously I think we need to think about what would be the arguments against the changes that we are proposing. You know, and this is where I wish we didn't have to meet in a public, I wish we could meet in a dark room where we could really talk this over, but we can't do that. So please, everybody, be thinking. Hello, Bob?
Mhm.
Are you all thinking?
Yeah, without moving our lips.
Writing.
Okay.
If I may, this needs to be presented at the pre-coordination or the pre-town meeting coordination meeting on Saturday, February 27th.
Okay, so I've got.
Melissa, will you be doing that? It's just a quick presentation to say what you're doing.
Yep.
And provide a little bit of background as to why or what the impact will be. And just to let other boards and committees know what to expect at town meeting.
Yes, so I will. And so I will probably be in touch with you privately.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you could say, if I got that correctly, that we said 41 were preferably preserved. Or we looked at 41, we said 15 were preferably preserved, and just 2 of the preferably preserved were actually preserved.
Preserved.
Okay, so you say 2 things. One, we're not a major bottleneck against change. But on the other hand, when we have sought to preserve, we've not been particularly effective.
Yeah, I think that's really
it does seem to me that one would say in the rationale that if nothing else, the current policy of setting the date for a delay from the submission of an application as opposed to the commission's acting on that undercuts the value of a delay.
Yep.
So I think, I realize you have to be short in the little box, but it should explain that we want the timing, the schedule changed in order to have more leverage for the delay.
I'm writing. So others of you who have, I mean, I think that's very good. I will write up something and I will make this presentation, but if any of you have additional thoughts that would help justify our case, I think we all have been frustrated that by the time we have a hearing, it's already been, it could be up to 45 days, I believe is what, so it's just a matter of a few, really months before the developer can just go in, make his calculation financially and just tear down the house. So it's not much of a disincentive for anyone to come before us. And at least if they had a whole year, it does give us additional time to marshal our own efforts as we were able to do with the house on Hubbard Street, with the neighbors involved. I think of course, the owner lived right next door to the property. It may have been more uncomfortable for him. So maybe it was, easier, but.
Could we introduce a ritual in which we arrive on the day of the demolition and conduct a shaming funeral for the house?
Dressed in black?
Yes, yeah, like the seventh seal.
Okay, I have black. Okay, well, we'll keep working on that. Yes, Marcia, I will do it the 27th. I'll learn what I have to do and I will be there and we'll prepare. So number 7, ongoing discussion. Recall that I asked all of us to take a look at the different boards and commissions, and each of us maybe take an assignment to be an observer. The idea being that it's helpful to know what other committees and commissions are doing. For example, particularly I'm interested in this Windmill Hill project. Had I been a regular observer, say at the ZBA, I would know this is coming before them. So recall I'd asked you to take a look at the different boards and commissions. Have any of you done that and come up with some ideas of what you would like to observe?
don't remember if I did. I made a list. Did I send it to you or no?
I don't think so. No.
I made a full list and now I have no idea where I've put it. I did attend just the Concord Together, as I had mentioned.
Yes, you did talk about that.
I don't know that it felt like it had immediate bearing on anything at this particular meeting, but I can certainly see how it would be useful to keep going in the future. Last week, they were primarily talking about just some town promotions. They're starting a new Wacky Wednesday town promotion to highlight one business per week. And then they had some Valentine's Day promotions they were talking about. So I can keep going, and especially with regards to that, oh, I forget what it was called, the art fair event, and that I was about to start organizing before COVID fell upon us last spring. I can see how it might be, you know, particularly useful to keep sitting in on it. So I'll keep doing that one, and I will try and find my list for you that I had made of all the ones that
anyone else, some of the others that are particularly relevant to us, say like the HDC, Historic Districts, the Planning Board, maybe even Public Works, although I'm not so sure that that has how much that relates to us. The Zoning Board is clearly one. Even like the Cemetery Committee. I mean, I was trying to think of other committees that have an impact somehow or other in historic preservation, historic properties. Is there anyone who'd like to volunteer for, you know, all you have to, the idea is you just, and now that we can Zoom from home, you just participate just as an observer, just as we have folks tonight. Just so we get maybe a heads up. So thank you for Rebecca for stepping forward. Is there any others? I think Nancy's already on the CPC, so that's helpful.
Put me down for the Cemetery Committee, please, Melissa.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go and observe that.
Okay.
Figure that'll be quiet.
The Historic Commission?
Oh, HDC. Oh, that would be excellent, Alan.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, months go by, maybe nothing, but I really do think it's kind of a good discipline for all of us. I guess I can't do the ZBA because they meet the same night we do. But I'll volunteer for the Planning Board.
And it could just be you monitor their agendas. Whenever you see an item that might be of interest, you can sit in and find out a little bit more, or you can follow up with the staff liaison to find out more. They also have they also post a lot of their information on the website in advance. So
that's true. Yeah, there's a lot on our website. I think just you know, another set of eyes to bring back to our meetings would be very, very helpful. Even in like the case of natural resources, since you know, we may be partnering with them, hopefully, maybe on this property at Wheeler Harrington. So thank you. I mean, all of you, you know, appreciate your offering that. I look to see it's almost 8:30 and Nancy's, are you there, Nancy? I wonder, am I allowed to text her from here?
yeah, if you need to, yes.
Let's see if I get her attention. I'm getting my phone here.
Marcia, I have a question just while we're waiting. The info that was sent around about the Keuka Road property,
Yes.
Is that strictly referring to the garages, not the house itself?
I believe so. I need to follow up on that. Okay. So,
but we'll be discussing it at the next meeting, at the March meeting.
Yes, okay. That's the intention.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, has someone offered? That's something we need to ask. Did someone offer to review that property with you, Marcia?
No one has volunteered yet, and I'm no longer available tomorrow, but I could do Tuesday or Friday of next week, or I'd be looking at the following week.
Does anyone, you know what we're looking, we need someone to, from the commission, I could do it next Friday. I'll send you an email tomorrow unless anybody else knows right now if they're available Tuesday or Friday next week. Anybody?
Which one?
This is a 325 Neshotic Road. It's the garages that they are asking to demolish.
I'm available during the day, during the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm available.
Do a site visit like you did with Marcia.
Yeah, I'm available.
Oh, okay. Could you do that, say Tuesday morning first thing, or would next Friday?
Tuesday morning, 6:30, 7 with Marcia.
Oh, whoa.
7:30 or 8.
8:30 or so?
8 o'clock would work.
8 o'clock. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, Mark, Mr. White. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get a hold of Nancy. So I got life. I'm hoping she's unmute, please. Nancy, are you there? Well.
And I move we postpone the reconsideration to the first item at our next meeting.
Yeah, I guess, you know.
There she is.
She's there.
Nancy? You're not on
mute. There we go. Thank you. Hi.
Okay,
what are you talking about?
So we need your participation. We're going to have to review the discussion that we had with earlier about the property at 80 Conant Street, because Marcia has explained that we needed more. We need more votes to make a decision. So I'm going to talk about what the vote was. I'm just going to start from scratch so that and ask the folks to comment again about Mark White's request to demolish the building at 80 Conant Street. So I might start with Bob. Are you back to talk about?
Yeah, I just needed to stand up and walk around for a minute. Well, actually, I think Mark should probably speak to this. I asked the question, why not renovate? And perhaps Mark could briefly explain to us again why renovation is not an option for him.
If you renovate that house, you're going to spend just as much money renovating it as you would rebuilding it. So you're really not maintaining an affordable structure. Everything in the house really needs to be replaced. The stairways aren't to code, the laundry's in the basement, the rooms are all compartmentalized, very tiny. Kitchen is tiny. It just doesn't meet today's buyer's standards. And it's not really energy efficient. So we'd be going in and proposing a new structure that was highly energy efficient in meeting today's buyer's needs.
Mark, can I ask you that actually there is, just the way you said that again, does raise me, there's that tiny house movement. Mm-hmm. Why can't a small house be renovated? Presumably there's some market out there now of people who would like a small property.
The tiny houses you'll find have very few walls inside of them. So it's really not compartmentalized. It's a wide open design. It's tiny, no doubt about it. It's efficient. It's really 1 to 2 room buildings. But it's a tiny, but it's an open design.
And that wouldn't be possible?
With economically, it wouldn't be, no. Just because the price that you'd sell that for just wouldn't be it just wouldn't be prudent from a business standpoint.
And again, given the idea that we're not, our job is not to sort of dictate what shows up on the property, but to decide if this one needs to be preferably preserved. My main feeling, as somebody who's in the area a lot, is that Conant Street already has lost that character, but that there are other streets within Concord Junction that as a whole still represent that feel and that era and that historical importance to me. And Conant Street is no longer one of them. So I don't see a reason for this particular building to be preferably preserved. And I know I don't have a vote, but for what it's worth, that's my take.
I understand Mark's economic and practical concerns. But looking back as a historian and a preservationist, I don't want people in 60, 70, 80 years time saying, why did they demolish that perfect house that represented late 19th century industrial economic development in Concord? Because all the others might have gone by then. And I just think that is so kind of representative. So that was, it is my stance.
Mark? Yeah.
Tom, in 20, 30 years, that house won't be standing. So it's just not in that good a shape. So looking out 60 to 80 years, it won't be there.
So it'll be, you'll think it will be gone anyway.
Yeah.
But there are places where, funding can be obtained for historic preservation. Always good to look at the bigger picture, I think.
Well, I think, not to interrupt you, but I think the design that we do come in with is going to have some of the same characteristics that the existing house already has. So in essence, even though you're not remodeling what's there, the end product that we're proposing will have some of those same designs. We're using Elise Stone as an architect who does a lovely job of mixing in these new designs with the old architecture.
She does. Actually, we've given her preservation awards before. That's true. Nancy, do you have some comment about 80 Conant Street?
Yep, I think, hi, Mark.
Hi, Nancy, how are you?
It's been a while.
Where are you?
I'm in Concord still.
I just see that picture in back of you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's persuasive, but not almost. It's persuasive in the fall. I think it's a house that might be preferably preserved, but I also think my main interest here is in documenting the house a little bit more. And we can't really condition our decision tonight about preferably preserved or the demolition delay on a condition that you might document the house and photograph it and figure out the history and do something that commemorates the structure and the type of structure it is. But it's something that as I understand it, that a builder or a developer could come back to the Historical Commission and ask for some relief from the 1-year demolition delay. So that's just what I'm thinking. Marcia, that's correct, right? That they could, even if there was a demolition delay voted tonight, that they could come back and ask the commission to reconsider based on mitigation.
That's a possibility, but yeah.
I thought we could also request that it's the whole package that we asked for, like we were talking earlier about photo documentation, site plans, elevations. That's part of the request to allow us to extend the permit.
No,
right?
to reduce the delay.
Well, I mean, in the past, I thought we have said, yes, you can demolish it, but you must document it.
Yeah, we've done that before.
Yeah, which would mean that you would lift the demolition delay by
but you wouldn't have to come back before us. You would have to submit the materials. It used to be to Heather Gill, and when Heather comes back, or to Marcia or Elizabeth, but you'd have to, before the building commissioner would issue a permit.
Right.
So the house in West Concord that we set that condition for, did they follow that procedure? Because I think
I'm not sure that's what we asked, but they have gone past there. They have to come back before us because I think it expired in December. The one on 1440 Monuments, 1440 Main Street.
that was the one that Honey Fitz lived in with Rose Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He's not demolished it yet. So I think, you know, his permit is expired. Well, so we need well, is there any additional discussion? Alan, did you want to comment?
Oh, because I'm more from the building point of view. So, I mean, I just kind of like those. You're basically talking about my house too. So,
I'm looking at your house from the video, and I'm not talking about your house. The inside of that house looks nothing like the inside of yours. Trust me.
Well, would someone like to make a motion? Someone of those who can vote, that would be Bob, Nancy, Tom, make a motion about this. If there is no more discussion, I think we agree that we would like documentation, but that has to be part of the motion, correct, Marcia?
I think that was said, if somebody was taking notes, the original motion I made had that language in it.
Well, I think we're starting over again because Nancy was not present for that. So would you please make your motion again?
I move that we approve the demolition of this house on condition that the applicant provide us with documentation, photographic, topographic, and other relevant materials to preserve knowledge about the history of the house and its site.
And that has to be, I'd just like to add that it be, it needs to be approved by the planning, Office of Planning and Land Management. I don't know if that's Marcia or Heather, but right? We need to know that she's got these materials before we could say to the building inspector, okay, our building department issue the permit.
Right.
So,
Well,
Alan, are you
I have
right?
a question.
Yep.
Is that actually the way to do it? Or can you do that? Can you condition it like that? Or do you have to vote up or down on the demolition delay? I don't know.
The motion can be that demolition is allowed, provided this information is done.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, so I need to take a vote, a verbal vote. Bob, your vote, please.
I vote aye.
Tom?
No.
No.
I don't know.
No. Nancy, your vote? Nancy?
Okay.
I shifted my device. So aye.
I vote aye. So that is 4 votes to 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Does the motion carry, Marcia? It does carry.
Motion carries. You have 3 that are in favor, 1 opposed.
Okay.
You know, what would be nice is in the 19th century, when they put up noteworthy public buildings, there'd be a time capsule of documents put into the foundation. So what we should do is require time capsules of the documentation for the houses built into the renovation.
No, Bob, I think the Historical Commission, maybe the historian should do that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I think it's getting late. And Mark, you've been very patient. So the motion carries that, yes, we will allow a demolition permit to be issued to you upon your submitting the required photo documentation and site plan and sort of documents to the Office of Planning and Land Management.
So when you are looking for a floor plan on that, are you looking for hand drafted, or when you say elevations, pictures of the elevations, or?
I think it's pictures, photographs, but it would be lovely to have the floor plan to scale.
I mean, so that if in 20 years when we go back and the house that doesn't stand, they can actually see what was there, the footprint of the property line and where the house was located and the proximity to the street. I think all that is what we want to know in the future.
There was kind of we were talking about this the other day, that there was actually a store at the corner of Concord Street and Main Street before the house was put up there. And a picture came across our desk from Johnny McGarry last week. And it was kind of cool that there was this little convenience store there back in, you know, the 50s and the 60s. And
yeah.
Where did you find that picture? Is the picture in the library?
I think someone had it at their house. You know, we posted on the Mosquitoquid on the website at the club. So it was kind of cool to see that, you know, that there was a store right in the corner of Conan and Main Street back in the day.
Yeah, I hope that picture also exists in the special collections, because that's, you know, that's where all that stuff should reside.
That's just kind of what we're looking for, things like that.
Yeah.
We can look back, you know, 60, 70 years later. Take a look at it.
Well, thank you, Sarah. So thank you, Mark, for coming back. I'm sorry it was long and drawn out, but it's done. Thank you.
Enjoy your evening.
So we have some guests here. Susan, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us? Any public comment?
No, I don't have any wisdom, but I did have a question. Oh, the light changes when it gets darker. About the Harrington farmland, was there any conversation about converting that back to being farmed, some of it, or not, or just for trails?
Susan, I think that could be part of the conversation. Actually, former town manager Chris Whalen was very interested in pursuing that and perhaps having the Marshall farm sort of extend over and provide some of that farming activity. And that's part of the conversation that I think we need to have.
What if you farmed crops that were once popular in Concord, but have faded? But or you know, this was amazing. Asparagus was introduced in the United States, was known as Concord grass, and not for any psychedelic effects. So, but I'm serious. There's agriculture and its emphasis changes over time. So, but that doesn't mean that the crops couldn't still flourish. So it might be interesting to use land to show the kinds of things that once grew here in much greater quantities than now.
Yeah. So we don't have minutes tonight. Mike will be working on those, and Alan, this has been recorded, so I think if you need help, you can be in touch with Marcia. Thank you. So thank everybody. Thank you all. As I said, I will forward to you the document that I'm working on. I would really appreciate your input. Also, the paragraph that Marcia has drafted for our warrant article, if you have any other comment, if you would send that to me and her. So, because I need to present this on February 27th. It will be brief, but we need to work on that. So
do you want a really quick CPC update?
Sure.
There is a formal recommendation that CPC has voted to forward for consideration at town meeting. I believe it is on the CPC website, but if not, you can write me and I can tell you what it is. If anybody has any particular questions, let me know. Wright Tavern, the request has been reduced to $260,000 to only address structural issues because there was a whole lot of other stuff in there that's not urgent or directly related. And they have added 2 historic preservation consultants to their team, one of whom is Larry Sorley, who was historical architect for the National Park Service, and the other is was on the team that did the historic structures report. So I think we are getting a heightened awareness of the sensitivity of that structure, and also a little bit more respect for what the Historical Commission is trying to do. Also at the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting tonight about the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, I'm very encouraged because the owner seems very open, although a little bit frustrated about some of the concerns that were raised at that meeting. But I think we're going to be able to work together to get a mitigation of some of the impacts of that project as well. And I mentioned at the end of the ZBA meeting that one of the things I'm most concerned about is increasing the interaction between town boards and committees that have overlapping concerns, and that we need to be more aware of each other. I know this was an item on the agenda tonight, but we need to be more aware of what the other commissions and committees are doing so they can have the benefit of our thinking. Since we have hardly any authority, we have to rely on moral suasion, I guess, or something. So well, I think there's potential for that. And I was happy on both those accounts.
Well, that's good. Thank you, Nancy. Just apropos of that, just wanted to say that Tom has volunteered to sit in or monitor the cemetery committee. Alan, the HDC, you already do the CPC, and I would do the planning board. I think, and I guess, the zoning board, we just need to do as Marcia suggests. It's, a lot of the documents are on the website. If we can't attend a meeting necessarily, we can certainly kind of keep up with it. So
where are the gaps? This town, as I mentioned to Bob before, his book talked about how Concord was an overcommitted entity even before the revolution. So are there any gaps that anybody's worried about?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I know there are hundreds of committees.
Yeah, I know.
And there are special committees that are created, like what Rebecca has pointed out, this Concord Together. Those folks are not an official committee, but they meet and they have an impact.
Well, so I might volunteer for Public Works.
Okay.
just because I don't have enough meetings to go to, but
well, if you can just sit at your chair and Zoom. Okay. Okay, well, I wrote you down, so you're on.
Well, I was half joking. We'll see how that goes.
No, I'm not. Hi, Susan. I'm sorry, yes.
Hi.
You're muted.
There we go.
The Zoom.
One more try. To Rebecca, that the town committee that's pretty closely affiliated with Concord Together is the Economic Vitality Committee, and that is a town committee that meets every 2 weeks at 4 o'clock on Wednesdays, I believe.
Tuesday.
It was Tuesday. Okay. Marcia's on it. And that has, that might be of interest too, because it incorporates some of the things that Concord Together does, but it has stakeholders from the historic sites, the Alcott House, property owners, business owners, mainly concerned about the commercial districts, but there are historical issues in some of those as well. So
thank you, Susan. That's I did not know that, and I don't know that I could always go at 4 p.m., but certainly, like we were saying, I could check the agendas and be in touch. So thank you. Yeah. I will definitely take that one on.
And the tapes on when you can't sleep at night.
Exactly. I do want to ring off and get a 6-year-old to bed. So good night, everybody. And I'll see you all soon.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca.
So I think, do I need to get a formal motion to adjourn? I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
So Tom, would you make a formal motion to adjourn?
So moved. Oh,
motion to end the meeting.
and
Okay, Nancy, you can second. Thank you. Second. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, very much.
Can we do a roll call vote? Melissa, yes.
Oh, we have to vote. Excuse me, to adjourn.
we don't do that. We're getting different guidance on this.
Well, okay. Well, we're going to do Marcia's rules of order. So Alan says.
I'm just saying there's two schools of thought.
Nancy, what's your vote?
Aye.
Tom?
Vote
Bob?
support the motion.
I'm out of here.
Oh my goodness. You're hurting cats. So, and I say aye. So I think the motion carries. We are going to adjourn.
Okay.
Hi, well.
Adjourn. Yes,
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
American English.
Good night.
Bye.